Hello, everybody, and welcome to the ETMN interview series. Today we have a special guest from the Victoria School District, and I will introduce him in just a moment. If you want to follow along with the podcast today live, we do have the Q&A feature open on the event page, and we also have a hashtag on Twitter, ETMN, if you want to follow along, or you can join us at our Google Plus community, where you can maybe send us a message on there if you have any questions about today's Hangout. So I'm just going to introduce myself really quick. I'm Victoria Olson from the Langley School District. I am working at West Langley Elementary in a 3-4 classroom currently, and Jeremy, who's usually with us, is unable to join us today, so it'll just be me and our guest. So we're just going to have a quick conversation today regarding documenting students' digital work and helping them get a voice, which is awesome because our BC Ed Chat topic this week was student voice, and it'll be awesome to see how that integrates with digital learning as well. So today we have Dave Shortreed on. He is the Coordinator for Educational Technology in the Greater Victoria School District, which is School District 61. He works with students, parents, teachers, and district programs for initiatives like special ed and learning initiatives with principals and vice principals through K-12 schools. So I'm going to hand it over to Dave, and maybe he can tell us a little bit more about his role in Victoria and what it kind of looks like there, his work with teachers. So welcome.
Thanks, Victoria. Hi, everyone. Welcome to my office. I'm kind of sorry there might be some honking because we have strikers outside my window, so it's quite the climate we're in today, but just so if you hear those honks, they're not at me, and you can get through them.
Are you sure they're not at you?
So thanks. Yeah, I'm in a pretty unique position in our district. It's the one and only position called the Coordinator of Educational Technology. It was created this year, so our district kind of recognized a need that we had to support educational technology district-wide. So from supporting tools that they were buying to giving leadership to consulting on purchases, it was a huge broad spectrum that I've kind of been handed and still kind of navigating what it looks like and feels like, but it's been a definite journey and it's been really exciting to be a part of it.
Cool. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into that? Was this position created because you showed an interest in this, or was this something that the district just started looking for? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I was working at the first elementary school that was given a set of iPads 4 years ago as part of a pilot, and so it kind of got handed over to me as the teacher, and I was just happened to be doing my master's at that time as well, so I recognized that there was a huge need to create a resource to support these iPads coming in, from implementation to advice, to best practices, best apps at grade levels, things like that. And it was really fresh. So I started building that as part of my master's project, and then offered that as a resource to the district and to the province. So when that happened, I think the board office started to see, oh wow, that there is a need for this, and this fills a big need. It won an award as well from the Viatech Award. So it did well, and it was useful, I think, to a lot of people. And then also that coincided with the district also recognizing there was a need there. So they designed a new position. They put it up for posting. I applied for it, and then I interviewed for it and got it. So that's kind of the story of from two elementary schools that I was working at to my position now.
Cool, that's amazing. So the actual document now, if you created that, you created it 4 years ago, or?
No, I finished it 2 years ago.
Okay.
So the actual title was 21st Century Learning, an iPad Educational Resource. And it was designed in iBook Author, so that teachers could download it, and then everything was hyperlinked, so the apps that I had in the lists and the resources that I pulled together, they were quickly interacted, and teachers could collect those things. And then I actually ended up getting rejected from Apple because I put a whole bunch of resources in there that weren't mine. So like YouTube video links of teachers using them in their classrooms, and handles, and people's just a huge conglomerate of things that I'd collected. And so I ended up just publishing on Scribed. And now I think the stats on that over 20,000 downloads on Scribe. So
wow.
it definitely was. It just went from there. It never ended up going into an actual iBook, unfortunately. So
Yeah,
it lost a bunch of the interactivity.
yeah, and that's part of the problem with the Apple stuff is that there's great resources out there, but there's that copyright piece that they carry with their store, right? So that
Yeah.
kind of gets in the way. So is that something that you keep updated, or is
No, I haven't. I haven't touched it, and I've kind of moved over to now building a district resource that hopefully is going to go live in September when we redo our district website. There'll be a new section in there, and I'm starting to build into that and less into a one-off resource. So that'll be live and that'll be updated for sure.
And hopefully something you're sharing with the EdTech Mentorship Network as well, because there are many districts that can benefit from those types of tools and just layouts of what kind of applications to use and how it should be centered around student learning. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. So your school district, then let's focus on Victoria as a school district.
Sure.
It's really weird to call a school district by my own name, by the way, so people who are watching, like, super weird.
It's not yours? It doesn't belong to you?
Yeah, it's not my school district. So the Victoria School District, though, what is their vision for technology? How are they approaching this?
So it's a full integration of technology into the full spectrum, from special ed programs and K-12 classrooms and administrators working in buildings. So we are using the 21st century learning tenets, the four piece of the C's from that. We're looking at the digital literacy standards that the BC Ed is putting out, the BC Ed plan. So basically the vision for technology is for it to be in the classrooms, to be fully integrated into classroom teaching and learning, and away from the isolated classroom that everyone stands up, walks over, and they do something in a computer lab that's isolated and not part of their curriculum, but bringing those tools and things into the classrooms, and so it's just part of one piece that's cross-curricular, that's integrated. It's not just iPad time, and it's not just an event, but it's, okay, we're doing social studies today, and here's our inquiry question, or here's the big core competency we're tackling, generating those kind of questions. And so it's still very much focused on the pedagogy, but then how does the technology fit into that? Is the kind of framework that I'm constantly reviewing and going over as I speak to staffs and to administrators about technology as a tool, not a learning outcome, and just focusing kind of and framing it around that.
Yeah, and I can imagine that that's something you're constantly reiterating, because I know that's something that we face in our schools even, like as a technology coach, I'm always talking about, it's all about the learning, it's about how you bring the technology into what you're already doing, rather than saying, you know, we have a class set of iPads today, what app can we use, or what?
Yeah, it's easy to get sucked into, even for me, I was sucked into, even I'm the iPad guy. I created this resource, I'm all about iPads. When really it was iPads were delivered to me as a pilot. I recognized a need that they had of generating a resource, and that's the only reason I went down that road. I've quickly already gone down a road of Chromebooks or cloud services or BYOD, and just kind of more so just recognizing what are the needs that we have in our education, like regarding technology, and then how can I facilitate, how can I build things to satisfy those needs is much more of a focus, and of course it's framed around learning, but yeah, and that's even, I'm struggling even with the term educational technology, because what exactly is that term on its own if it's across all of the sectors and departments in my school district? I'm not interested in going and making an isolated ed tech space. I'm interested in how does that space fit into across all of the departments in our district.
Sure.
So it's a little bit of even navigating and framing what I'm even saying, and in my title and in this department, in this team.
Right, and that makes a lot of sense actually, because you've got so many departments from a high school who might be using programs like C++ all the way down to kindergarten, where you're going to have iPads as a center, maybe in play centers, right? So there's all of these places in between where those have to fit in, and it is difficult to put one title on it for sure.
Yeah, and even going around the topic of digital literacy, when the standards came out for digital literacy, it almost gave me a little bit of an unsettling feeling, because I felt like, oh, okay, now they're separating literacy and digital literacy. And it was almost like I've seen George Couros and Alec Couros kind of speak on taking that digital word out, and we should just be calling it literacy. And what does literacy look like now? And of course it's going to going to include things that are online and things that are non-text. But framing it, it's an interesting spot that we're in right now. I feel like we're in a bit of a transition where we need to articulate it, but also we need to provide the whole spectrum for teachers and so.
Totally. So let's just talk a little bit about our topic today is making student learning visible and things like that, and how you can give students voice by publishing the work that they're doing. So when teachers are approaching you, what types of things are they asking for, first of all, and then second of all, how do you frame it into how students can get a voice online? So how do you change? Because a lot of teachers are going to come to you and say, I want to use the iPads for this. I want to use it for the science project on animals. So how do you change that into student voice about what they want to learn about that?
Yeah, it's funny that one of the first things that I end up coming out of the gate about is privacy, is the FOIPA, and I've learned to frame it around more of like a cautionary, not as a limiter and not as like a challenge and you can't do anything online anymore, because I think that was initially the reaction. And I think it's a good thing, because we don't want parents being able to Google their kids and see, their teacher created all these accounts that now online, and my kid has this identity online and I never knew about it. I think that's where we start to get into a little bit of a questionable space. So it's mostly talking to teachers that I'm finding around like the idea of digital citizenship. And I've been using the analogy of walking through a park. Like, you don't send your class across the road into a park that you've never been and say, okay, go and play with all the things that are there, go talk to all the strangers that are there, go pick up anything you feel like, and just wide open kind of, that's what we're cautioning against. The picture needs to be more of, I've been over there to that park, I know all of the dangers, I'm going to talk to my kids about them long before we go over there, and perhaps maybe we're all going to go over there together under one shared account, let's say, and we're going to explore that together and talk about that. Or you're going to tell them stories of yourself going over to that park. So I use the analogy for getting teachers to get online just so that they have something to speak to when they're talking to their kids about digital citizenship. So go make a Twitter account, add followers, and then talk about your kind of behavior that's on Twitter. Are you putting up your whole life up there? Is it a professional space? Is it a public space? And considering all of those pieces, I think it gives material for teachers to talk about the kind of choices that are involved when you're putting your work up online. And then moving from there, I think we're having all these tools now in kids' pockets where they can easily take photos, they can add notes, they can annotate things, they can create digital work, and then it's about harnessing and being able to have those students empower themselves to be able to build things and then share them to an authentic audience. I think the goal is for them to just be so on fire on what they're learning and to know that they're actually sharing it with a community that will listen to them. That it's about kind of framing that with the teacher and how that should look and scaffolding them towards that end. And I think that should be a reasonable and a good goal, but it's definitely there's steps in between, okay, take your iPad and go start publishing all over the place, and steps towards that. So we see classrooms in Victoria and all over the province that have shared Twitter accounts that, like yourself, Victoria, that kind of model and you work with your students. There's like someone who takes a Twitter account every day, someone different in the class, and they're sharing from their classroom. You talk about how you're tweeting and who you're tweeting about, whether you're including faces, whether you're including people's names, and having that kind of dialogue at that level, or a shared blog that the whole class shares and you take turns being an author. So there's that kind of like shared experience that we're seeing quite a bit of with even just one iPad in the classroom, and there's a different, almost like taking minutes, so that kid is able to blog what they learned that day or what happened in the classroom that day, and you have quite a bit of conversation leading up to it. And then when you are ready to go public with it, someone in our district, Heidi James, has really been a pioneer for just getting public blogs, and even in her grade 6 class. So she tweeted out a photo of her whole set of lockers, and they were covered in Post-it notes. And what she had done is she had created the front of her locker as their blog, and the Post-it note were comments from other kids on there. And so they did that paper and pencil work, talked about what's an appropriate comment, what's inappropriate, is it a chat, is it all those kinds of conversations around that blog management, long before they went online and they created a blog through her and started on that public space. Because there is value, I think, in giving in kids public space, but sometimes it might take running a private blog for a few months, or running it for, like, depending on the age group and depending on the relationship that you have with those kids. Like, Heidi is a big advocate of making those things public. There are other teachers that are like, no, we want to have this private. We want to have it just as a safe space for us to share with each other, and that has value in itself as well. Yeah. It just depends on how you build it.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with, like, you know, I did kind of a version of the locker thing you're talking about with Heidi, with paper blogs. That's one of Pernille Rip's blog posts. If you don't know her on Twitter, she's at Pernille Rip. And she has an amazing blog and lots of resources there for starting to share with your students. Paper blogs were really a hit and a really great way to start conversations. And actually, when I'm doing my technology coaching as well, I always start with a paper blog lesson first, just because it's so effective in getting the kids to start considering what they're saying to one another. Oftentimes, when kids are, you know, developing this work, their only met audience is usually the teacher, which is really sad unless you're doing kind of public sharing somehow in your classroom, community sharing. So whenever we get those opportunities and pieces for kids to start interacting with one another's work, it's very interesting to see how they begin to support or ask questions of one another, and scaffolding, you know, what is a good comment, a constructive comment, or what's not, and that was really helpful before going public. So how do you feel then, like, if you go to a teacher and they're a little bit reluctant to get started, how do you scaffold to those areas? What are your first steps?
So working with a teacher that is talking about wanting to go on a blog space but not sure, I typically point them to a private blog, and I show them how to add their class. And so, because that's what I was doing 4 years ago with classpress.com. I mean, the interface is a little bit, you can't manage it nearly as much and customize it as much, but the functionality is there. So we have lots of grade 4 and 5 classrooms in our district using ClassPress to use as a blog. And in my experience, I was having students coming into the computer lab before school and writing on their blog, even just for each other's classes, and then you can start to connect one class to another. So I guess I would scaffold it with having conversations with your class long before about digital citizenship. It's almost parallel to the BYOD conversations that we're having in middle school right now. So about half of our middle schools here in Victoria are allowing cell phones, the other half aren't. And so there is a spectrum that's there. And even some schools, they'll have one class that is BYOD and then the rest of the school isn't. So we're having those kind of conversations, and I think what they need to start at is the digital citizenship piece. Whether it's a contract that the kids co-create together, that everyone signs, but it's almost like a behavior kind of guideline that you articulate before you get onto something online, or onto their own devices, and then you build from there. But it's definitely, it starts at conversation, it starts at the relationship, and then it's about finding the kind of product you want to use, because there's a whole range from ClassPress to Kid Blogs to WordPress. Those are kind of like the big three probably for using blogs in our district, and then we're also like excited to see what's coming with My Education BC and the new BC ESIS, and seeing what kind of virtual classrooms are going to be coming with that. But that's the space that we're in right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think giving people, like, you know, I use Kid Blog, and, you know, there's a couple of our folks that are watching right now are commenting, you know, Kid Blog has a lot of great settings, but there's a lot of other platforms out there. And so just reiterating, it's not about the tool that you use. A lot of them actually have a fairly similar features. Some might have a nicer workflow for some folks. I actually find that Kid Blog can kind of be a pain to teach folks because they're not familiar with WordPress, and that's okay. So, you know, just pulling from the different types of resources that are available is sometimes important. So are there any other blogging platforms that you share typically? You named a couple, but...
No, those are kind of the big three that I'm seeing. And I do want to expand these blogs. It's more than just word processing and writing paragraphs. It's anything that they're producing on an iPad, let's say, any kind of digital piece that they're proud of and they want to share. So what these blogs have quickly become is a bit of a portfolio, and it can run from the start of the year to the end of the year. So you have comparative kind of artifacts that are in there. And we're seeing even one of our high schools here in Esquimalt High, and Trevor McKenzie, he's starting with WordPress with grade 9 students, and the goal and the plan is to have them carry that WordPress blog all the way through grade 12. So when they're graduating, they have a huge positive footprint, that they have a record of all the learning that they've done in high school. And I think that graduating with something like that, that's online and digital, I think can have a huge impact for setting them up for success moving out of high school into the other fields that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And taking those pieces and being able to have just a really quick, easy link to some kind of digital resume later down the road that they can share with future employers, colleges, whatever, right?
Yeah, and students are already on their devices, and they're taking photos and videos of all kinds of stuff in their personal lives and sharing them and telling stories already. So it's about taking that kind of voice that's already happening, and this is something that George Couros has kind of got me going down, is it harnessing that and bringing it into education, and how do we get them to tell stories in a similar way but different regarding their own learning and regarding what their ahas are, and capturing the moments for them that were meaningful, and then how do we have them broadcast that out? Because if we're not providing that for our students, then students will start to go and Google and figure out things on their own. And if we're not providing something that's valuable for them in our classrooms, then they might as well go to Google and get taught by Google instead.
Yeah, for sure. There's one of our viewers watching, Rich McHugh. There's this little quote, and I quite like it as well. He said, heard this the other day and love it. We need to get away from disposable assignments and instead allow students to produce public goods. And this is from Paul Stacy at Creative Commons. And I think that just exactly what we're talking about here is that students are creating their content rather than consuming their content, and asking authentic questions, and there's just real curiosities, and you can still get through your content, but you might not get through it in the same way that it might have used to be done. And I think it's important to have that shift in pedagogy before we focus on the actual technology.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
Yeah. Is there anything else cool that your school district is doing? We only have a few minutes left, so we'll kind of wrap up with what else Victoria School District is up to, and how you're involved with that.
Sure. So we are shifting in a big way to cloud services, and that's something new for our district. I mean, everyone is using Google for their personal lives, and some people are signing up their classrooms. We're looking to put our whole district over to Google, or putting putting them over to Office 365. So we're building privacy assessment, impact assessment, 35-page documents right now. ERAC created one for Office 365. We're looking to mimic that for Google, so that when we hit September, we have a school that's going to be running Google and another school that's going to be running Office 365. So those are two pilots that are happening in September, and then we'll compare them and feel out which ones we want to offer, if we want to offer both, if they have both value. The Google one is going to have 60 iPads that are 60 Chromebooks that we're looking at for the Google. So those are two pilots that I've been kind of building on the back end.
And that's Google Apps for Education.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So when I went to the GAF Summit at Mulgrave, learned and saw the huge community of educators that were there and excited, and bringing that back into Victoria with this opportunity has been really exciting. We're definitely, there's an emphasis on value and best uses of the tools we already have. I think that in our district we can still get a lot of more value out of the iPads that we have. So we have about 1,800 iPads in our district, and I think that there's a long way to go for using like what they can still do, even the iPad 2s that we have. For functionality, for apps, for integrating them into our curriculum. We're finally getting Wi-Fi in our elementary schools, which was on hold for a few years, so that's going to be a huge game changer for using those iPads in elementary.
Wow.
So that is, at this point, it's kids creating things and it's showing it to the class, and that's as far as it goes. So we'll see the impact that creates with cloud services as well at elementary level. We designed something called the Tech Package, which includes an overhead short throw projector, an Apple TV, a sound system, and it's all installed by the district. And when we pitched this Tech Package, what happened is every single school wanted one, And so we were able to get 2 in every school in our district, so that's 50 schools got the same type of package. And then I'm offering Pro-D sessions at the end of a set of 5 schools that get it installed. And what that's done is created a great network around shared tools and the ease of use. It got away from the classic projector on a laptop on a cart with a bunch of cords and an Ethernet cord running this way and a power cord running that way, and the teacher time around that. So now it's a click of a button, and everything is integrated, and any device can get through Apple TV. And so that's been a pretty big success of this year. I think the feedback has been really positive, and it's just a matter of resources to get those in more classrooms. But the initiative of putting 2 in each class, 2 in each school, that means 50 different schools are playing with this similar tool, and it's creating great networks and communities around sharing those shared tools. So that was another part that we were doing this year. And then probably the school websites in Victoria, all of our school websites got built with WordPress. Third-party company that we hired called Up and Up ended up winning an award from the design that they gave for our school district websites. And now they are managed a lot easier from the school level. They're updated regularly. They have great integrated features, and we're rolling out phase 2 next year, which will include teacher web space domains as part of that. So every teacher will have access to a space that's hosted here at the board office, and that's supported by our district. And I'm going to be a big part of rolling that out. We'll see how that provides kind of a workflow for teachers and a collaborative space as well.
That's amazing. So it sounds like there's a lot going on for you guys over in Victoria. Another island initiative here, as we talked to Aaron Mueller from SUC just last week. So you guys got a lot going on over there.
Yeah, we're reaching off the island. I mean, this just the ability to reach out to you, Victoria, and the ETMN, and getting more of like a provincial perspective as we are all kind of in the trenches, kind of trying to innovate. I think that camaraderie and that community is something that's so valuable. And when it's built around relationship and community, and then when it's exciting to see and connect with people from Twitter and just connect with them face to face and that kind of celebration, I think that's just giving more, it's just empowering all of us from all kinds of districts across the province. And that's why I'm putting my face out there as and being as transparent as I possibly can, and sharing as much as I can, just because I see the benefit coming back to me in such a great way.
Yeah, for sure. And connecting online has been invaluable for me too. It totally changed my practice and totally changed the way that I view and just the way that I think. I definitely go to people more than I used to. Never used to ask for as much help as I do now, and I find that I get the answers that I need way more instantaneously. And actually, the ETMN has been pretty neat because even these interviews are cool because I have the opportunity to learn from so many different people from different districts, and I just hope more people start to tap in on what we have here, because I think getting more folks involved in these conversations, like we could, just get past so many of those obstacles we have here in BC. A lot of people look at FOIPA as an obstacle, and I liked your outlook as, don't look at it as that. People need to hear those conversations and have those conversations and know that, School District 61 is doing a risk assessment on these things, or that ERAC has done a risk assessment on Office 365, and if folks don't know that, then they're just going to duplicate that work and spend the money on it. So
yeah, and if the Ministry of Ed wants us to do more shared services, it's just a no-brainer to team up and share on these kinds of tasks. Because just even using taxpayer money better, if we can collaborate and share knowledge with each other, it's just a matter of figuring out how to do that district to district. I'm still figuring out how to do that within our own district. I think we're still coming out of that silo model of each school having their camp of knowledge and tools and Pro-D that they have, and a huge part of my mandate is sharing from school to school what this school's doing and what that school's doing, and that's been the most valuable thing I've been able to pass, is what another elementary school is doing in our own city. Sometimes just relaying that message is the biggest piece that I'm bringing.
Absolutely, and I think that happens even down to the classroom level, where you have teachers within a school that don't even know what their colleagues within the school are doing. So I think it resonates at all levels, and it's important to bring that transparency around so folks can see some other models of what's going on, and maybe be inspired to innovate and change their practice and take risks.
Yeah.
You know, it's important to take educational risks and to innovate and move forward. And I've been kind of working with, I don't know if you're familiar with Bill Selleck from California, but him and I have been working on a hashtag #EdFailForward, and we're kind of planning on, you know, trying to get some folks to start sharing their stories of when they try and innovate and you know, just test out some new technologies or test out some new lesson ideas, and you know, sometimes they don't work, and that's got to be okay. We have to be able to share those things and keep a positive attitude, and someone out there might have an idea to make it better for you. So that social networking piece is pivotal to the experience. So yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm going to keep you on the line after we hang up because I wanted to chat with you. There was a few links in our document, our show document today, that we wanted to share out. So I'll make sure that the EdTech Mentorship Twitter handle, and maybe we can get some of those posted on the community as well. But I just want to get some of that stuff shared out to folks so that these are out there in the world and you can share away as you please. And is there any other things that you wanted to add before we jump off?
Just a big thank you, Victoria. What this initiative is doing, I think, and I hope, is to get more people sharing what they're doing in other parts of the province in this forum. And that I think that's just a really great project that you're taking on, and so I commend you for that. And I'm 100% committed to being part of it with you. So way to go.
Thank you very much. So thank you everyone for watching. If you want to get at us later, you can come on to Twitter on the ETMN hashtag. You can join us on etmn.org if you want to see some of the guest posts. We're kind of in draft form still. We're trying to push it out to make it a little bit more robust there to share some resources on the site. And our Google Plus community, of course, where you are likely to get this hangout or any of the old hangouts on the ETMN YouTube channel. So there's tons of ways to connect with us. Pick the way that works best for you, and we're here when you need us. So thank you.
Feel free to reach out to me anytime. If you never hear from me again, I think you might be missing the point of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to connect with everyone. So reach out, ETMN or our school district hashtag or me.
Awesome. So that stuff is listed below on his little name tag there. So thank you again for coming on, and thank you for watching.